My friends, success isn't built in a day, it's built daily. Brick by brick, effort by effort. And the difference between those who achieve and those who only dream, it's not talent, luck, or intelligence, it's consistency. You see, motivation comes and goes, but discipline is what carries you through when motivation fades. The problem is that most people wait until they feel like taking action. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect energy, the perfect conditions. But champions don't wait for a feeling, they force themselves to be consistent no matter what. Think about it. The person who exercises 3 times a week, every week, will always be in better shape than the one who goes all out for a month and then quits. The entrepreneur who shows up every day, even when it's hard, will always outlast the one who bursts with excitement for a few weeks and then fades away. Most people set goals. They sit down, write a list of things they want to accomplish, and feel a surge of excitement. They say, this year I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to make 6 figures. I want to read 50 books. And while goals are great for providing direction, they often fail to produce real, lasting change. Why? Because goals are something you reach for, but standards define who you are. You see, goals are external, but standards are internal. A goal is something you hope to achieve, but a standard is something you refuse to compromise on. A goal is a wish, a standard is an identity. When you set a goal, you give yourself an optional target. But when you set a standard, you demand a certain level of performance from yourself, no matter what. Think about the difference. A person who sets a goal to work out 3 times a week might succeed for a while, but eventually life gets in the way. One day they're tired, another day they're busy, and before they know it, they've skipped 2 weeks of exercise. But someone who sets a standard that says, I am the type of person who never misses a workout, will find a way no matter what. They don't negotiate with themselves. They don't debate whether they feel like it. They simply do it because it's part of who they are. It's the same with business, relationships, and personal growth. If someone sets a goal to make 6 figures, they might get there if everything goes right. But if someone sets a standard that says, I am the kind of person who delivers massive value every day, success becomes inevitable. Why? Because they focus on the actions, not just the outcome. They consistently do the work. Not because they're chasing a number, but because they refuse to operate at a lower level. The problem with goal setting is that it creates an achievement mindset instead of a consistency mindset. People work hard to hit the goal, but once they reach it, they relax. They slip back into old habits because they were focused on the destination, not the identity. That's why people lose weight only to gain it back. That's why businesses grow fast and then collapse. That's why people read 50 books in a year but fail to apply any real knowledge, because they chased a number instead of building a standard for life. The most successful people don't operate from a place of temporary motivation. They operate from a deep internal standard that says, this is who I am and this is what I do. A world-class athlete doesn't just train when they feel like it. They train because that's their standard. A top entrepreneur doesn't just work hard when inspiration strikes. They work hard because that's their standard. So the question is, what's your standard? Not your goal, but your standard. What are the things you refuse to compromise on? If you only work when you feel like it, if you only push yourself when motivation is high, then your results will always be inconsistent. But if you decide right now that you are the kind of person who operates at a higher level, regardless of circumstances, everything changes. The shift from goal setting to standard setting is the difference between people who achieve once and people who achieve for a lifetime. It's the difference between those who succeed occasionally and those who succeed repeatedly. It's the difference between someone who tries and someone who becomes. The truth is, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. If your standard is low, your performance will always drop to that level. But if your standard is high, if you demand more from yourself, if you expect more from yourself, then your results will match. So stop setting goals that rely on motivation. Set standards that create discipline. Don't say, I want to be successful. Say, I refuse to operate below excellent. Don't say, I hope to be in shape. Say, I am someone who never neglects my health. Change your identity, raise your standards, and watch how your entire life transforms. Most people believe success comes from massive action. They think they need to make huge changes overnight, take big leaps, or completely transform their habits in one go. But the truth is, success is not about how fast you start. It's about how long you keep going. The people who achieve great things don't do it because they made one huge effort. They do it because they started small and never stopped. When people set goals, they often aim too high too fast. They say, I'll work out for 2 hours every day, or I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and read for 2 hours before work. And for the first few days, they're full of energy, driven by motivation. But then reality kicks in. They miss one workout, sleep in one morning, and suddenly they feel like they've failed. The cycle repeats, and they quit, believing they weren't disciplined enough. But the problem wasn't discipline, it was the approach. The key to long-term success is not about starting with intensity, it's about starting with consistency. A 5-minute workout every day is better than a 2-hour session once a month. Reading 1 page a day is better than trying to finish an entire book in one sitting. Writing 1 paragraph a day is better than waiting for the perfect moment to write a whole book. Small actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound into something extraordinary. Look at nature. A mighty tree doesn't grow overnight. It starts as a tiny seed, day by day. It grows, barely noticeable at first, but because it never stops, it becomes strong, unshakable. Success works the same way. The people who get ahead in life are not the ones who make the biggest moves all at once. They're the ones who commit to small improvements every single day without fail. The biggest mistake people make is underestimating the power of small, repeated actions. They think that if it's not dramatic, it's not working. They don't see immediate results, so they assume it's pointless. But success is built in the moments no one sees. It's built in the quiet decisions to keep going even when progress is invisible. A person who writes just 100 words a day may not see much change in a week, but in a year, they'll have written a book. A person who saves just a small amount of money each month may not feel rich at first, but over time, they build wealth. What matters is not how big you start, but that you start. And once you start, you don't stop. No matter how small the effort, no matter how slow the progress, you keep going. Because once you stop, the momentum disappears, and starting again becomes harder. The secret is to keep moving, even if it's just an inch at a time. People often wait for the perfect moment to begin. They wait for motivation, for the right circumstances, for the stars to align. But the perfect moment never comes. The only perfect moment is now. And the best way to create success is to begin where you are with what you have and commit to never stopping. Small efforts, repeated consistently, create unstoppable momentum. And once you have momentum, success becomes inevitable. The key is to build habits that are so simple, so easy to maintain, that they become second nature. If something feels too hard to sustain, make it easier. Reduce the time, scale it down, but never quit. Because quitting is the only thing that truly stops progress. Everything great starts small. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once a novice. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's persistence. It's the decision to start small, but never stop. Most people fail not because they aren't capable, not because they don't have the right skills, and not even because they lack opportunities. They fail because they give themselves an option to quit. They start something with enthusiasm, but the moment it gets tough, the moment progress slows down, they start looking for a way out. And once quitting becomes an option, it's only a matter of time before they take it. You see, the mind is always searching for an easy path. It wants to avoid discomfort, avoid difficulty, avoid uncertainty. That's human nature. But success never comes to those who take the easy way out. It comes to those who remove the option to quit entirely. When you take quitting off the table, something powerful happens. You force yourself to find a way forward, no matter what. You stop looking for excuses and start looking for solutions. You stop asking, should I keep going, and start asking, how do I keep going? That shift in mindset changes everything. Think about people who succeed at the highest level. They don't treat their goals as experiments. They don't say, I'll try this and see how it goes. No, they say, I will make this work no matter what. That level of commitment is rare, but it's also what separates the top achievers from everyone else. The people who win in business, in health, in relationships, these are the people who decide in advance that quitting is simply not an option. When you commit to something without an escape route, you operate differently. You push through challenges because you have no choice. You find energy when you feel drained because there's no backup plan. You dig deeper, think smarter, and work harder because you've burned the bridges that lead back to your old ways. That level of commitment forces you to grow in ways you never imagined. The problem is most people start with one foot out the door. They leave themselves a way to back out just in case. They say, if this doesn't work, I'll do something else. That's the language of someone who is preparing to quit. And when you prepare to quit, quitting becomes inevitable. Success requires a different mindset. It requires the kind of thinking that says, I will keep going no matter how long it takes. I will keep pushing no matter how hard it gets. I will figure this out. Look at anyone who has ever accomplished something great. They all faced obstacles. They all had moments where quitting seemed like the logical choice. But they didn't quit, not because it was easy, but because they refused to give themselves that option. When a person decides they will finish what they start, no matter what, their chances of success skyrocket. They keep moving forward even when progress is slow. They keep showing up even when the results aren't immediate. And eventually they break through. If you want to succeed, remove the option to quit. Don't give yourself an easy way out. Don't entertain the idea of stopping. Make quitting so unthinkable that you have no choice but to keep going. Because the moment you decide that quitting is not an option, you start thinking, acting, and working like a winner. And that's when everything changes. Success is not just about effort, it's about direction. You can work hard every day, but if you're not tracking your progress, you might be running in circles without even realizing it. Progress is not just about moving. It's about moving forward. And the only way to know if you're moving forward is to measure where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. Most people set goals, start strong, and then rely on their feelings to judge their progress. They assume they are improving because they feel busy, or they assume they're stuck because they don't feel the results fast enough. But feelings are unreliable. One day you feel motivated, the next day you feel frustrated. One day you think you're making progress, the next day you're doubting yourself. This is why tracking progress is essential. It removes emotion from the equation and gives you real evidence of growth. When you track your progress, you create clarity. You see patterns, strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. You start noticing what's working and what's not. Without tracking, you might be putting in effort, but missing opportunities to optimize your approach. Maybe you've been working out for months, but not seeing results. Without tracking, you won't know if it's your diet, your consistency, or your training routine that needs adjusting. Maybe you've been working on your business, but it's not growing. Without tracking, you won't see whether it's your marketing, your sales process, or your customer retention that needs improvement. Tracking progress helps you make informed decisions instead of just guessing. One of the biggest benefits of tracking progress is motivation. Progress is one of the strongest sources of motivation, but it's hard to see when you don't measure it. Imagine a person trying to lose weight. They step on the scale once a month and see no major change. They feel discouraged and think their efforts aren't working. But if they had tracked their weight weekly, measured their body fat percentage, or recorded their workouts, they might have seen that their strength improved, their endurance increased, or that they had lost inches even if the scale didn't move. That kind of evidence keeps you going. When you track progress, small wins become visible. The human mind craves progress, but when progress is slow, it's easy to feel like nothing is happening. But if you write down every workout, every completed task, every small milestone, you will see that you are, in fact, moving forward. Even on bad days, even when you don't feel like you're improving, the data will remind you that you are. And that reminder can be the difference between pushing forward and giving up. Another powerful aspect of tracking is accountability. When something is written down, it becomes real. If you keep track of your daily habits, you become more aware of your actions. If you track your spending, you become more conscious of where your money goes. If you track your productivity, you become more intentional about how you use your time. Tracking creates awareness, and awareness leads to better choices. The most successful people in any field track their progress relentlessly. Athletes track their performance in detail. Businesses track their financial numbers. Writers track their word count. If you want to improve any area of your life, you must measure it. Because what gets measured gets improved. Tracking your progress isn't just about success, it's about mastery. It's about knowing yourself, refining your approach, and making sure that every step you take is a step forward. And when you commit to tracking, Success is no longer a matter of luck or effort. It becomes a predictable outcome. A routine is something you do. A ritual is something you become. Most people go through life following routines. Waking up, going to work, exercising, eating meals without much thought or intention. They do these things because they have to, not because they have infused them with meaning or purpose. But when you transform a routine into a ritual, everything changes. You no longer just go through the motions. You bring energy, focus, and commitment to every action. A routine is often mechanical, something done out of habit. You wake up, brush your teeth, and drink coffee because that's what you've always done. There's no real emotion behind it, no deep connection to why you're doing it. But a ritual is different. A ritual is intentional. It carries significance. It's something you do with full presence, with a sense of purpose. It's not just an action, it's an act of personal power. Take, for example, the difference between someone who simply exercises and someone who has made exercise a ritual. The first person goes to the gym, does their workout, and checks it off the list. The second person approaches it with a mindset of transformation. They don't just show up. They prepare their mind before they begin. They visualize their progress. They engage fully in every rep, every movement, every breath. It's not just about getting through the workout. It's about elevating themselves every time they step into that space. A routine can be abandoned easily. When life gets busy, routines are the first to be sacrificed. Someone who simply has a routine of reading every morning might skip it when they feel tired or pressed for time. But someone who has turned reading into a ritual sees it differently. It's not just an item on a to-do list. It's part of their identity. They don't just read for information. They read to sharpen their mind, to gain insight, to grow. And because of that deeper purpose, they don't miss it. The reason rituals are so powerful is that they create emotional and psychological commitment. They anchor you to a higher standard. Think about the greatest performers in any field, athletes, musicians, entrepreneurs. They don't just practice, they have rituals. A top athlete doesn't just warm up, they have a pre-game ritual that prepares them mentally and physically. A successful entrepreneur doesn't just start their day with a few emails, they have a morning ritual that sets the tone for their success. When something becomes a ritual, it is no longer optional. It is something you protect. It is something that strengthens you. It is something that moves you toward your vision every single day. That's the difference between those who are consistent and those who struggle. People who only follow routines lose momentum when obstacles appear, but those who establish rituals stay locked in no matter what happens around them. To create a ritual, you must connect your actions to a deeper purpose. You must bring intention to what you do. If you want to turn your morning routine into a ritual, don't just wake up and go through the motions. Wake up with purpose. Set your mindset. Reflect on your goals. Start your day with gratitude or focus. If you want to turn your work into a ritual, don't just show up and do tasks. Approach each task with the mindset that it is part of something bigger. When you create a ritual, you shift from discipline to devotion. You no longer have to push yourself to do things. You feel pulled toward them because they are part of who you are. And when you reach that level, success is no longer about effort. It becomes a natural result of the person you've become. Most people love the idea of success, but struggle with the reality of what it takes to get there. They get excited about setting goals, making plans, and imagining the rewards. But when it comes to the daily grind, the repetitive, unglamorous, and sometimes boring work, they lose interest. They look for shortcuts. They chase excitement. And when things get monotonous, they quit. But the truth is, success belongs to those who embrace the boring work. Greatness is not built on moments of inspiration. It is built on disciplined repetition. It's doing the same exercises in the gym day after day, even when you don't feel like it. It's practicing the same skills over and over, even when they feel tedious. It's showing up, putting in the effort, and staying consistent long after the excitement has faded. The people who succeed are not the ones who only work hard when they feel motivated. They are the ones who commit to the work no matter how it feels. The problem is, people crave variety. They want every workout to feel exciting, every project to feel new, every task to bring a rush of motivation. But real progress happens in the quiet, unexciting moments when no one is watching. It's built in the early mornings, the late nights, and the hours of repetition that seem to blend together. The champions in any field understand this. A world-class athlete doesn't become great by only training when they feel inspired. A musician doesn't master their instrument by only practicing when it's fun. A successful entrepreneur doesn't build a thriving business by only working when the mood's... They all understand that mastery comes from embracing the grind. The boring work is where transformation happens. It's where you build the habits, the discipline, and the resilience that set you apart. Most people quit because they expect progress to be exciting. They assume that if something feels boring, it must not be working. But the opposite is true. The moment things become repetitive is the moment you know you're on the right path. The work that feels ordinary is what leads to extraordinary results. Think about the greatest performers in any industry. They have rehearsed the same skills, practiced the same fundamentals, and repeated the same actions thousands of times. They have done the same drills, written the same types of reports, made the same phone calls, lifted the same weights, read the same kinds of books. Their success is not built on variety, it is built on consistency. They don't search for excitement, they search for improvement. The key to lasting success is shifting your mindset. Instead of seeing repetitive work as dull, see it as proof that you are doing what it takes. Instead of looking for motivation, look for momentum. Instead of chasing variety, chase mastery. Because when you learn to embrace the boring work, you separate yourself from the majority of people who are too impatient to stick with it. The greatest advantage you can have is the willingness to do what others won't. While most people look for shortcuts, you put in the reps. While most people get distracted by new trends, you stay focused on the fundamentals. While most people give up when things get repetitive, you push through. That is what leads to long-term success. Success is not about who starts with the most talent or the best opportunities. It is about who stays in the game the longest. It is about who keeps going when the excitement fades. It is about who is willing to embrace the boring work, knowing that on the other side of repetition is mastery, growth, and a level of success that most people will never reach. Success is rarely a solo journey. The most disciplined, committed, and high-achieving people in the world don't rely on willpower alone. They understand that personal accountability is powerful, but external accountability is life-changing. When you surround yourself with people who hold you to a higher standard, you remove the option to slack off, make excuses, or quit when things get tough. Most people fail not because they lack talent, resources, or knowledge, but because they don't have anyone keeping them accountable. They set goals, get excited, and start strong. But when motivation fades, they drift. Without accountability, it's easy to let small excuses become big ones. It's easy to push things off until tomorrow, then next week, then never. But when you have people who expect you to follow through, quitting is no longer an easy option. Accountability forces consistency. It removes the illusion that you can succeed in isolation. When you tell yourself, I'll get to it eventually, no one is there to call you out. When you say, I don't feel like it today, no one is there to remind you of your commitment. But when you have a coach, a mentor, a business partner, or even a friend who is invested in your progress, everything changes. You no longer rely on self-discipline alone. You have external pressure to keep you on track. Think about professional athletes. They don't train alone in their garage hoping they stay motivated. They have coaches, trainers, and teammates pushing them every day. They are surrounded by people who won't let them take shortcuts, who won't let them settle for average. That's why they keep improving. It's not just about personal drive, it's about an environment that demands excellence. The same principle applies in every area of life. If you want to get in shape, surround yourself with people who value fitness. If you want to grow a business, connect with entrepreneurs who push you to think bigger. If you want to master a skill, find a mentor who won't let you stay comfortable. The people around you shape your habits, your mindset, and ultimately your results. The key is to find the right kind of accountability. Some people will cheer you on but won't challenge you. Others will hold you accountable but without real investment in your success. The best accountability comes from people who push you, challenge you, and refuse to accept excuses. They don't just encourage you, they expect results. They remind you of your commitments when you're tempted to quit. They call you out when you fall short, not to discourage you but to help you grow. Most people avoid accountability because it's uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their weaknesses, their excuses, and their lack of discipline. But that discomfort is exactly why it works. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Progress doesn't come from doing what's easy. When you surround yourself with accountability, you eliminate the option of staying where you are. Accountability isn't just about having someone check in on you, it's about creating a culture of excellence. It's about putting yourself in an environment where success is the standard, not the exception. The most successful people don't just hope they stay disciplined, they design their lives in a way that makes discipline inevitable. At the end of the day, you have two choices. You can go at it alone, relying on willpower, struggling to stay consistent and hoping you don't get distracted, or you can surround yourself with accountability. People who push you, challenge you, and keep you moving forward no matter what. The first path leads to inconsistency and frustration. The second leads to real, lasting success. Success is not just about what you know or what you plan to do. It's about what you consistently follow through on. And the best way to ensure that consistency is to surround yourself with accountability. Find the people who won't let you settle, who will push you when you slow down, and who will remind you of your commitments when you start to drift. Because when you remove the option to quit, when you build an environment that demands your best, success is no longer a possibility. It becomes inevitable.